Beep, beep, beep. What? What's that sound ringing in my head? Hero mumbled in a soft voice. Is it the chime of the bells of the heaven? He mumbled while trying to figure out the identity of the sound. At first it sounded like the chimes of bells, but as he continued to listen further, the sound started to become rather annoying. Ah, stop it already. Hero woke up to the sounds of the alarm clock. In a state of sleep deprivation, he found himself in a room which seemed like it belonged to a child. Am I not dead yet? He mumbled in disbelief while looking at his surrounding. Everything around him was rather familiar and strange at the same time. In front of him, the wall was decorated by posters of iconic football players. Portraits of Pele, Maradona, Iniesta, Javi, Hana, Jinji Kagawa, Kurosaki Miura were among the posters. But what stood out the most among those posters was the two posters which were bigger than the rest. The two posters were pasted side by side, each of them flaunting their Ballon d'Or. One was the picture of Cristiano Romero in Real Madrid's jersey, while the other was the picture of Andreas Messi in Barcelona's jersey. Even when I want to die, I can't stop thinking of football, huh? While looking at the poster in front of him, he mumbled while revealing a gentle smile. Whatever. I'm sure it must be a dream. It must be a flashback of the past. Yeah, it must be a flashback that I'm witnessing before I leave this world. Reassuring himself that he was just having flashbacks of the past, he closed his eyes, awaiting for his consciousness to fade away. He kept his eyes closed and patiently waited for his consciousness to fade away. Tick, tick, tick. The clock continued to tick, but his consciousness wasn't fading. In fact, it didn't seem like it would fade anytime sooner. Huh? What's happening? Why is my consciousness not fading away? He mumbled with a slight irritation. I'm sure that I died. So why is my consciousness still not fading away? Just like Hero had mentioned, he indeed had already died. He died after committing suicide. At the age of 27, when his last hope of becoming a professional football player was shattered by the jealousy of some rowdy teenagers, he had committed suicide by walking in front of the moving truck. Hero, who used to love football more than anything else from his early childhood, was considered a genius of football. From an early age, he showed great interest in football, and to back his interest, he was exceptionally gifted as well. His father, a football enthusiast, used to have lots of items related to football in their home. He collected every World Cup ball, various jerseys, and posters of great footballers. Even his interest in football started when his father was playing with him. At the age of 1, his father playfully tossed a football towards him. Even though he couldn't kick the ball because he hadn't learned to walk yet, he headed the ball with his head while walking on his 4 legs. That act shocked his father and made him smile. He jokingly said that he would be the greatest footballer in the planet, and he continued to toss the ball towards him, and every time he tossed the ball towards him, he would head the ball towards his father. Seeing him only heading the ball, his father started to teach him how to kick the ball. Lost in his enthusiasm, his father forgot that his son was still a kid who hadn't learned to walk yet. However, he would still try to kick the ball with his feet, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't kick the ball. And as he grew older, his interest in football only deepened. Wherever he went, he carried his football. Even a stray bottle that was left stranded on the road looked like a football from his perspective. He would kick the bottle with acute precision into the garbage bin while imaging himself taking a free kick for the country at the World Cup. Witnessing his enthusiasm, his father assumed that he would grow up to be a great footballer one day, and he sure did live up to his expectations until something bad happened to him. His father, being a football enthusiast himself, provided him with everything he needed to train himself. However, every time his father would take him to buy a new jersey or boot, his mother would scold them both. After all, they belonged to a middle-class family, and lower-middle-class family to be more precise. The money his parents earned were barely enough to cover the rent and groceries. So football was a luxury to them. However, his father would still save some money by skipping his meals and transportation fee to fulfill his wishes. The collection of football antiques he held dear was something his father was proud of and had collected during his younger days before his birth. His father used to have enough money to fulfill his hobby before his birth, but after his birth, everything changed in the family. The expenses shot up, and the situation got even more tight. But his father never blamed him. Instead, he gave up on his hobby of collecting football items. He gave up on his hobby of watching football in the stadium. In fact, he even gave up on watching football on television. Instead, he started to work longer hours and often worked overtime. However, he would still make time for him and teach him how to play football. His father himself used to be a footballer, although he never made it to pro because of his lack of talent. Still, he gave his all and tried to make it pro with all his might. Unlike his father, Hero showed great potential from his early days. Even when playing with the kids his age in elementary school, he used to easily dribble past every player on the field. Whenever he played, there used to be crowds of spectators to cheer him. His ball awareness, his skill, his pace, his handling, his passing, his dribbling, his first touch, everything was top-notch. Watching him play was similar to that of watching a god play football. And because of that exact same reason, he used to be called by various nicknames in his early years. Some of those nicknames included Alien, Spider-Man, Genius, and most prominently, he was referred to as the Little God. But all of that changed when he tore his ligaments during his middle school tournament. The injury was a serious one, which could most probably never heal. The doctor warned him that he could never play football again when he tore his ligament at the age of 13. Devastated by the news, he wept like a kid. He felt as if the sky had fallen upon him when the doctor mentioned he could never play football again. His parents begged the doctor to come up with some kind of solutions to let him continue playing football. The doctor, giving in to their tears, suggested a surgery. However, the success rate of that surgery was less than 10%, and the surgery costed hella a lot. It was more than they could afford. Even if they saved for more than 2 or 3 years, they wouldn't still be able to afford the cost of the surgery. But despite that, they took several loans from several banks. And even when that wasn't enough, they took loans from vicious loan sharks to cover the expense for the surgery, just to keep his dream alive. After collecting enough money for surgery, he went a surgery to heal his legs. The operation lasted for more than 6 hours, but still the surgery was a failure. They couldn't cure him completely. However, they cured him enough to let him continue to play football. After that surgery, he underwent several rehabilitation therapy to heal his legs. Finally, after a whole year of rehabilitation, he could finally play football once again. However, after that injury, he could never be the same again. Although his spatial awareness and creativity was still top-notch, his body couldn't move the way he wanted it to move. It felt as if he had lost meaning to his life. The same crowds of spectators who used to bombard the sidelines and praise him for his plays booed him and deemed him as a failure after his terrible performances. As the time passed, the crowds dissipated. Less and less people came to watch him play. As much bad as he felt, he also felt relieved upon the decrease in the number of crowds. Less crowds meant lesser criticism. He knew that it wasn't the right type of mindset to make it to pro, but he still couldn't help himself. After all, their harsh criticism pierced his heart like a sharp knife and distracted him. The same teammates who used to sing his praise turned against him after he lost his abilities. They started to ignore him and taunt him. Although he paid no attention towards their taunts, he couldn't completely ignore it either. While enduring harsh criticism from everyone, he relentlessly trained himself while keeping his dreams of making pro alive. Even after more than an hour, he couldn't feel his consciousness fading away. "Goal! Hey!" The sudden sound of goal startled him. He startlingly opened his eyes. The sound came from the room above him. Even after waiting for more than an hour for his consciousness to fade away, everything felt so real to him. Neither was vision getting clouded, nor was his body disintegrating. He could vividly feel everything around him. Running his fingers through his face, he noticed something odd. Why is my skin so smooth? And why do I feel that I've shrunken in size? As he ran his fingers through his face, several questions popped up in his mind. The room was dimly lit by the table lamp beside his bed. Nothing was making sense to him, but just to be sure if it wasn't a dream, he pinched his cheek. "Ow! Damn, that hurt!" he screamed in pain. After pinching himself, he could tell that he wasn't dreaming, and neither was he dead. He then extended his arms to investigate why it felt so small. His hands were that of child, soft and smooth. Airy, why is my hand so small? Is it even my own hands? In disbelief, he tried to wiggle his fingers. They moved exactly the way he wanted it to move. Huh? Don't tell me. He vigorously pulled the blanket aside and jumped out of the bed. He then ran towards the cupboard. As he approached the cupboard mirror, an image of a child became vivid in the mirror. Black eyes, short and dark curly black hair, which curled like a noodle, and with a red strawberry lips and puffy cheeks. He was dressed in a Barcelona jersey. In disbelief, he ran his fingers through his face. The reflection in the mirror copied his exact same movements. Did I return back? His eyes wide open, his face forecasting an expression of shock. He couldn't believe that he had returned back to the past. As he continued to stare his image in the mirror, tears welled up in his eyes, and as the tears accumulated, he could no longer hold them back. The tears fell down through his eyes like a sudden burst of monsoon rainfall. He continued to weep like a kid in front of the mirror. After his tears started to dissipate, he began to wipe off the tears from his face. While his eyes were full of tears, his face revealed a smile. He was overjoyed to return back alive. After some time, when he could finally regain his composure, he started to look for his phone. If he remembered correctly, then he would have put it in the drawer of the table beside his bed. He walked towards the table lamp and pulled the drawer. In his drawer, there was a memo and a mobile phone. I was right, it was here indeed, he whispered in a soft voice. He grabbed his phone and tried to turn on his phone. A picture of Captain Tsubasa from the famous anime Captain Tsubasa appeared on his home screen. Looking at his wallpaper, he chuckled. He looked at the date and it was July 14th, 2014. If it's 2014, then I must be 5 years old. He contemplated while looking at the date. Wait, July 14th? Am I missing something? Something felt like missing after looking at the date. As if he was forgetting something, he kept on trying to remember what he was forgetting. World Cup final, he deliriously exclaimed. July 14th, 2014 was the date of the World Cup final when Argentina and Germany would face each other. After remembering what he had forgotten, he stormed outside his room and rushed toward the living room. As he reached the living room, there on the couch, a person was sitting in front of the TV, holding a can of beer in his hand. Seeing the person, he stopped his movement. He knew who that person was. He was extremely familiar with the person. You finally came? The man in front of him spoke. He was caught off guard by his speech. Unable to respond, he stood frozen in front of the man with eyes full of tears. What happened? Are you all right? The man inquired with a worried face. The lights of the room was turned off, and the only light which lit the whole place was the blue rays coming out of the television. Upon seeing his eyes full of tears, the man rushed towards him. He then grabbed his little hands and began to wipe up the tears of his face. Did you have some kind of nightmare? The man exclaimed while gently wiping the tears off his face. He spoke nothing and continued to weep like a kid. He couldn't stop himself from crying. After all, it had been so long since he last heard his voice. As he lifted his face, he could vividly notice the man with black eyes and dark black hair. His face was still the same as he once remembered. Chiseled jawline, sharp nose, few strands of tiny hair across his jaw and beneath his nose provided him a handsome, manly appearance. His body constitution was neither obese nor slim. With an ideal body weight, he had vividly defined muscles. The man was none other than his father, who he had lost when was age 16. After 11 whole years, he was finally seeing him once again for the first time. Seeing his gentle face, he could no longer hold himself. He threw himself in his arms and hugged him tightly. His father, confused by his unusual behavior, hugged him regardless. It's all right, he exclaimed while gently stroking his back. They remained in that position for a long time. Neither Hiro nor his father Takashi could let go of each other. Do you not want to watch the World Cup? Takashi whispered. He finally remembered that the alarm clock which woke him up was set by him to wake up himself to watch the World Cup final together with his father. He then gently pulled out his arms and distanced himself from his father, and as he faced his father once again, he revealed a wry smile and spoke. Argentina's gonna win for sure. You bet. Germany's gonna win for sure, his father replied back with a smile. Hero knew that Germany was gonna win, but still at that time he had been supporting Argentina, and his father was supporting Germany. After an goalless 90 minutes, the game had gone into extra time. Even the first half of the extra time was goalless, and the game had gone into the second half of extra time by the time he arrived at the living room. With score 0-0, the score was tied until 115 minutes. He knew that at 117 minutes, Mario Götze was going to score the winning goal for Germany, but he kept his mouth shut regardless. He looked at his father. His face was overjoyed with happiness. He could vividly feel his ecstasy. Go, 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 go! His father roared in ecstasy. Few other voices from the surrounding reverberated along with his cheers. At second half of the extra time, at 117 minute, Mario Götze scored the winning goal for Germany, leading his nation to victory. After that goal, Argentina couldn't trail Germany. The final score of the match was Argentina 0 and Germany 1. Germany won the World Cup with that single goal, leaving every Andreas Messi fan disappointed. If it were any other moment, he would have been disappointed as well. In fact, he cried back then when Argentina lost the World Cup. But this time, the smile on his father's face meant a lot more to him than anything in the world. What did I say to you? Didn't I say that Germany would win the World Cup? Ha 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 ha. His father started to laugh maniacally as Germany lifted the World Cup. He was so much overjoyed that he forgot that his son was a mere 5-year-old. Still the same, I see. No mercy for the opponents, even if that opponent happens to be your own son. He contorted his face while looking at his father, disappointed. Just shut up and let me sleep. Another voice came from the master bedroom. The voice was filled with anger. As soon as he heard that voice, his father instantly shut his mouth. We should keep it quiet. Otherwise, your mother's gonna beat us both. Takashi whispered. The voice filled with anger belonged to his mother. Unlike the father and son duo, she had absolutely no interest in football. She was more on the practical side. All she wanted to do was earn enough money and live a decent life with her family. In fact, even in his previous life, she had always forced him to study well and become a doctor or a lawyer. However, his passion for football overshadowed her expectations of him. Despite his mother's countless nagging, he was hell-bent on being a professional football player. Now that the final match of the World Cup had ended and he was lying in his bed, he couldn't sleep for some reason. And as much grateful as he was for being granted a second chance to see his family once again, his mind was focused on something else. While staring at the ceiling above his head, he started to wonder about the course of action he needed to perform moving forward. Previously, he gave his all to football and solely focused on his dream, the dream of representing his nation in World Cup, the dream of playing football professionally. But things didn't work out as he expected. Despite his brilliance, he struggled to make it to pro. The first major tragedy happened when he was age 13. In a middle school tournament match, he tore his ligament when an opponent player performed a rash tackle on him from behind him. His team was leading the game with a score of 2-0, and it was in 57 minutes of the match when he was sprinting the ball toward the goal. The opponent player couldn't trail him, and in desperation, he performed a sliding tackle on him from behind him. That tackle missed the ball, but it landed critically on his legs, which in turn costed him his legs. Recovering from that tackle wasn't an easy thing. He was bedridden for months, and it took him more than 6 months to get back on his feet, and it took yet another month to finally walk on his feet. After a year when he could finally run and was back on the pitch, he couldn't play the way he used to play. He was more of a fantasista who could score and assist at the same time. And what made his plays more effective was his fast pace and insane ball control. Every time when he stretched his legs to shoot the ball after the injury, he felt excruciating pain in his legs. His legs were capable of shooting the ball at an insane speed of 65 miles per hour, which was even better than some professionals. But after that injury, he could never hit the ball with that power once again. Unable to perform according to his will, he started to change his play style. Before, he was more of a versatile offensive player who could play both as a forward and as a midfielder. But after that injury, he changed his play style to that of a poacher. Even after the injury, his finishing was still top-notch. He could shoot accurately, but even so, his shot lacked power. He continued to train himself into a striker who waited for the pass in front of the opponent's goal. He couldn't run back deep and fall back to take the ball, as he once used to. He continued to thrive in that position, but his plays lacked creativity and his shot lacked power. Hence, he couldn't perform well. He was just an average player who scored only tap-ins. And his approach was still fine until he reached adulthood. Unable to sign a pro deal, he had to work part-time if he wanted to continue playing football. While some of his friends were already professional and some had settled well in life, he was working part-time and playing football in a local league. As much as he wanted to deny, he was jealous of their success. How could he not be jealous? After all, he used to be way better than them before his injury. But now he was shadow of his former self. He was flat broke, and his future looked extremely bleak. He was constantly juggling between his job and football. At some point in his life, he even thought of quitting football. But his passion for football was much more than his reason to quit. He continued to play football despite the struggles. And finally, at the age of 27, his perseverance was bearing fruit, as one of the scouts of a struggling team in the 4th League took notice of him. They were fighting a battle of relegation. If they were to be relegated, they would have to fall out of the professional league. Thus, in desperation, the team decided to take a gamble and wanted to sign him. Finally, when his dream of making the pro was about to get fulfilled, tragedy struck him once again. Unable to sign the pro contract, some of the teenagers in his local team got jealous of his success. Out of jealousy, they pushed him off the staircase. Falling from the staircase, he broke his tibia, leg bone. As he hit his head upon the fall, he lost his consciousness. And when he regained back his consciousness, he found himself in hospital bed. His leg was covered in plaster of Paris. The injury which he had picked up when he was young escalated further after that fall. Due to fractured bone, he missed the opportunity to be signed by a professional team. And to make matter even worse, the doctor informed him that he could never play football once again. The sky fell upon him as he listened to the doctor. He stumbled and fell down, unable to handle the truth. He was devastated by the news of never being able to play football again. At the age of 27, he lost everything. He had neither money nor could he play football again. He went back to live with his mother. His mother, who was already a single mother, struggled to feed him. Witnessing the struggles of his mother, he felt even more miserable. And as the time passed, he started to develop symptoms of depression. Suicidal thoughts started to appear in his mind. And finally, succumbing to his suicidal thoughts, he took his own life walking in front of the moving truck. As the truck hit him, he thought that he could finally escape from his struggle and rest in peace. Or so he thought, but how wrong he was. Instead of a peaceful death, he returned back to the time when he was still 5 years old. Should I study well and become a doctor or lawyer and fulfill my mother's wish? Or should I use the knowledge of the future and bet money on the winning teams and earn money? Hero contemplated. I don't want to go through that same tragedy once again, he whispered, clenching his chest. The tragic experience he had gone through in his previous life caused an intense pain in his heart. Whenever he remembered of the day, he lost his everything. No matter how much he tried to reason, he couldn't stop himself from thinking about football. Even after somehow he had got a second chance in life, he still wanted to continue playing football. He couldn't give up on his dream. But what if that tragedy repeats again? He mumbled, doubting his choice. If I strengthen myself physically, I might prevent that tragedy from happening once again. After all, the reason that I injured myself before was because of my weak physique. I focused too much on football that I ignored my physicality. If I were a little more sturdy back then, I wouldn't have injured myself. He frowned. Whatever, I'll play football once again, and this time I'll prepare myself thoroughly. I won't be beaten by some lame-ass injury. I'll give my all, train myself every day and night. Just wait and watch. I'll be the greatest player alive. Unable to quit football, he raised his hands and clenched them tightly. Steeling his resolve, he was determined to make it to pro. Ding! The host has fulfilled the requirements for the awakening of the talent copying system. Upon hearing the unknown voice, he jumped out of the bed. He was startled by the unknown voice. The voice resembled that of the voice of a female. Who? Who's there? Horrified by the unknown voice, he began to shake his head vigorously in search of the source of sound. System initializing. Please wait for some moment. System initializing? What bullshit are you spouting? Just freaking show yourself? Hero exasperated. Unable to find a single soul in his room, he wondered if he was hallucinating. Perhaps I'm getting a system like those protagonists in the web novels? He wondered while trying to figure out the source of the sound. Despite him not being a huge fan of web novel, he had heard countless stories about reincarnation from his friends. The stories where the protagonist would die and somehow miraculously come back to life. Upon reincarnating, they would gain a cheat-like ability or a system to make them stronger. I've already reincarnated, so it wouldn't be strange if I were to gain a system somehow, he mumbled while trying to soothe himself. As unreal as it seemed, he had already experienced the unreal feat of reincarnation. Hence, it wouldn't have been strange if he were to somehow get a system. Guessing that he had somehow attained a system, the horrified look on his face faded away and a smile formed on his face. The anticipation on his face escalated as he found the reason behind the unknown voice. Beep, beep, beep. Scanning for potential host. Host detected. Registering Takahashi Hiro as the new host. Adjusting the biometrics. Synchronizing the data. Just when will it end? He exasperated as the system was taking a lot of time to synchronize the data. Tome, synchronization complete. Welcome to the talent copying system. Finally, it ended. He released a deep sigh. Please select a desired profession you wish to excel. A. Actor. B. Athlete. C. Lawyer. D. Doctor. E. Entrepreneur. F. Astronaut. The list stretched infinitely as it mentioned every profession available in the world. However his priorities were fixed, he knew what he wanted. He couldn't care less about other professions, and he didn't need to think twice about his choice. Athlete, he yelled. The host has picked athlete as his desired profession. Please confirm your choice by saying confirm. NB. Once confirmed, the host cannot choose again. Confirm, he spoke without any hesitation. Confirming host's pick. Choice confirmed. Please select the category of athlete you wish to become. A. Footballer. B. Basketball player. C. Tennis player. D. Cricketer. E. Baseball player. Once again, the list stretched infinitely. The system was mentioning every possible sports available in the world. But this time, too, his priority was fixed. Footballer, he yelled once again. The host has picked football as his desired profession. Please confirm your pick by saying confirm, confirm. Once again, he spoke without any hesitation. Performing deep scan. Scanning complete. As the system completed the scan, he felt a throbbing pain in his head, as if something was making its way towards his head. The excruciating pain intensified. He screamed in a muffled voice. Unable to withstand the pain, he fell down on the floor. He could neither move his body nor could scream for help. Huff! Huff! He was breathing heavily and sweating profusely. After some time, the pain started to mitigate, and as the pain dissipated, he mustered some strength in his legs and tried to get up. His legs wobbled as he tried to rise. Please inspect your status. To inspect your stats, mention status window. Stay status window. Even to speak two words, he needed to muster all his strength. As soon as he finished his sentence, a translucent holographic blue page appeared in front of him. At the right side, there was his current picture, and at the left side were his basic information. Beneath the basic information were mentioned his attributes. Basic information. Name, Takahashi Hiro. Age, 5 years old. Weight, 18 kilograms. Height, 3.5 feet. Potential, SSS. Attribute point, 0. Roulette tickets, 0. Skills, none. Title, Master of the Talent Copying System, Regressor, one who possess ethereal talent. For detailed information about the title, click on the title. Let's do what it says to do. Hero curiously clicked on the title, Master of the Talent Copying System. Just as he did that, he got directed towards another page. Title, Master of the Talent Copying System. While this title is in effect, you can interact with the system and gain extra points by completing the mission designated by the system. So basically, each title comes with their respective title effect. I'll inspect the effects of other titles sometimes later. Right now, let's continue to observe my stats, he mumbled. Attributes. Physical, 2100s grade, E+. Dribbling, 52 100s, grade, C+. Pace, 33 100s grade, D+. Passing, 35 100s grade, D+. Shooting, 42 100s, grade, C. Defending, 17 100s, grade E+. Mentality, 35 100s, grade D+. IQ, 70 100s, grade B. Overall grade, D. Note, the above stats are displayed in comparison to the professionals. Please open the tab below for a more detailed stat. Match stat. Goals, 0. Assist, 0. Dribbles, 0. Shot on target, 0. Shot off target, 0. Distance covered, 0. Passes completed, 0. Successful. Tackle, 0. Clean sheet, 0. Note, above stats are only accumulated through professional matches. So it's basically like my in-game statistics, huh? He exclaimed. Since he hadn't played any professional matches, his match stat attributes were all filled with 0. Daily mission? Locked. Quest? Locked. System store? Locked. System roulette? Locked. Individual achievement? Locked. Let's just stop for now and continue later. It's already getting too late. He couldn't handle all the information at once and thus called it a day. He reached towards his pocket and took out his phone. It was already 3:15 a.m. Damn, I should probably sleep now. If Mother somehow finds me awake at this hour, she'll probably smack the shit out of me, he exclaimed. Putting his phone in the drawer, he hit the bed. A lot of things happened to him that day. Firstly, he was miraculously reincarnated, and after that, he even acquired a system. Every single thing which happened to him that day was ethereally unreal. Whilst in the bed, he was still wondering about the things which he had experienced. I need to inquire more about this system tomorrow, but for now, let's sleep, he mumbled. As soon as he closed his eyes, he instantly fell asleep. He was too much exhausted by the day's events. Despite being a 5-year-old, his stats were insanely unbelievable. His dribbling stat was already on par with most of the semi-pro athletes, and his IQ was even better than most of the semi-pro athletes. The mere fact that he had an overall grade of D at the age of 5 was already shocking. But to make matters even more spicy, his potential was SSS grade. Even the world-famous athlete Lionel Christian Romero and Andreas Messi had a potential of SS grade. In terms of potential, he far exceeded everybody present in the earth. Compared to his other stats, his physical and defending were lacking by a mile. But despite that, he could still upgrade his attributes with the help of the system. Even though he couldn't understand a lot of things, he had a rough idea about the things mentioned by the system. He could tell that he could become a professional by following the guidelines of the system. But what he didn't know was that he could become the greatest footballer to ever live with the help of the system. Here, hero! Huh? Who's calling me? He heard a voice while he was asleep. How long do you plan to sleep, hero? He tried to open his eyes. His vision was still blurry, and he was still in a state of half asleep. As he tried to open his eyes, a figure of a lady with long brown hair and milky white skin became visible. However, the figure was blurry and he couldn't see clearly. Room covering his eyes, he was having trouble opening his eyes. Finally, after a little bit of struggle, he opened his eyes. There in front of him, his mother was yelling at him for oversleeping. Long brown hair with brown pupils, milky white skin with a mole above her upper lips. Dressed in a red t-shirt and loose trousers, she was yelling at him. Despite the vivid anger in her face, her angelic appearance charmed him. "Angel!" he mumbled. "Huh, what angel? You pesky brat, wake up. It's already time for school," she yelled furiously. "Still the same, I see. You and your furious temper. But I miss that a lot," he thought while looking at her angry face. "Now get up and freshen up." She left towards the kitchen after waking him up. Previously, he hated her nagging, but this time around, he was happy to listen to her nagging once again. Unable to endure her nagging, he had yelled her in his previous life, and after that incident, she never nagged him again. Pulling aside the blanket, he hopped out of his bed. He raised his arms and began to stretch his body. As he stretched his body, few joints in his body made a popping sound. After stretching his body, he started to fold his blanket and make his bed. He was mandatorily required to make his bed every morning, or else he'd have to endure the wrath of his mother. "Hero, hurry up!" his mother yelled, calling out for him as soon as he finished making his bed. "Coming, Mom," he replied back. He then began to walk toward the kitchen. "You shouldn't keep him awake till late night. It's all your fault that he's going to be late for school." As he walked inside the kitchen, he found his mother yelling at his father. His father was as docile as a lamb. He couldn't do anything. He simply sat at the dining table, flipping through his newspaper, listening to her nagging. "Oh, you're here. Come and have breakfast," his father spoke while revealing a gentle smile. Hero returned back the smile. Words couldn't express how grateful he was to experience that moment with his family once again. After losing his father in his previous life, his relationship with his mother soured over time. While his mother kept nagging him to focus on his study, he kept rebelling against her decision. Despite knowing that she only meant well for him, he couldn't see through her real feelings. He kept on thinking that even she didn't have any faith in him that he could make it to pro. He took her well wishes negatively and rebelled against her. Only after witnessing her struggles, he realized the meaning behind her nagging. After he injured his legs, she was the only one who provided for him. She was the only one who stayed beside his bed when he was bedridden in hospital. And for his whole life he hated her because of his prideful attitude. To prove her wrong, to prove everyone wrong, he struggled miserably, taking countless part-time jobs, training in the morning, and training later in the night when he was all by himself. He barely slept for 3-4 hours. "Did you brush your teeth, Hero?" she called out for him while he was spacing out. "Uh-huh. No, I've not Thwack! Before he could complete his sentence, his mother smacked him on his head. "Ow, why did you do that?" Turning his head towards her, he complained, but he couldn't finish his sentence upon witnessing his mother's angry face. She was fuming. After living alone for so many years, he forgot that he needed to brush his teeth before having breakfast. While living alone, he didn't have any proper eating schedule. Sometimes he'd eat breakfast at 12, and sometimes he'd be very busy that he'd forget to eat. Forgetting to brush before having breakfast wasn't the only thing he had forgotten. He even forgot about the short temper of his mother. She would beat him even if he were a child whenever he made mistakes. Rules were absolute if he wanted to live in her home. Looking at his mother's angry face, he quickly realized his mistake. He then hopped out of the chair and stormed toward the restroom. "You better hurry up. If we get late for school, you're in for another beating," she yelled furiously as he ran towards the bathroom. It didn't take him long to brush his teeth. He barely avoided her beating. He then hurriedly stuffed the breakfast prepared by his mother. It was already 7:30 a.m. by the time he had finished his breakfast, and he was required to reach the school by 8 a.m. As he was still in kindergarten, he didn't require to wear any proper uniform. Due to embarrassment, he quickly got dressed before his mother could help him to dress. Despite his appearance being that of a 5-year-old at the present, he was still a 27-year-old grown-up from inside. Just when he was about to leave the house, his father stopped him. "You didn't forget about the kids' football tournament that's going to be held in the Sakura Futsal later in the evening, did you?" his father inquired. The local football club had organized a tournament for the kids of the age 5-8 to promote football in their locality. Basically, it was designed as a sort of entertainment event for the local spectators. While up front, it was a charity event to promote football. But behind the reason for organizing the event was to advertise their football club, to attract better investors, and to increase their fan base. Simply speaking, it was a marketing stunt. The tournament was just like any other regular youth tryouts. The kids of the age 5, 8 could show up in teams or show up alone. Those who showed up on teams didn't require to form new teams, while those who showed up alone were paired up with other kids and a team was formed. I know it, Dad, but still, thanks for reminding me again. He spoke confidently, even though he was still lying about remembering the event. He had completely forgotten about the tournament. It was the first time when he played competitively against other kids. Also, it was the beginning of his football journey. It's good that, I'll pick you up at 3 later in the evening, and we'll go together, his father exclaimed. Okay, but don't you have work today? I've taken a day off to see you play today. How can I miss my son's debut match? His father replied enthusiastically. He was baffled by his father's response. As much as he remembered, he didn't attend this tournament previously. In fact, it was his mother who had accompanied him to the futsal, but something was different in the present moment. His father worked in a construction company and usually worked overtime. Except the occasional day offs, Hiro couldn't even see his face until morning in any normal day due to his work. But despite being extremely busy, his father would still make time for him, occasionally. He would occasionally come to see his matches. You're not joking, right? Hiro bewilderingly replied. No, I'm not joking. I'll pick you up later from the school. Takashi reassured Hiro. Hurry up, Hiro, or else we'll be late for the school. His mother called out for him. Soon in her bicycle, they reached the school. In the front gate, a young lady greeted them. Hello, Mrs. Takahashi. How are you? The young lady greeted them at the entrance of the kindergarten. The young lady was dressed in a light pink shirt and azure blue trousers. Her jet black hair was tied by a scrunchie and a ponytail. Lip gloss applied in her lips gave it a pinkish appearance. And moreover, due to the smell of perfume, she smelled like fragrant roses. Hiro couldn't stop himself from staring at the young lady in front of him. His cheeks turned red as she looked at him with a smile. Hello, Misaki-sensei. I'm doing fine. How about you? His mother greeted back. The young lady was none other than his homeroom teacher. Due to her young appearance, everybody would mistook her age as a teenager. However, she was already in her mid-20s. And Hiro himself, being a 27-year-old from inside, couldn't help himself from getting attracted towards her. Shall we head inside, Hiro? She exclaimed with a smile after finishing her conversation with his mother. However, he was lost in his imagination and was staring blankly at her. Hiro, as he regained his composure, he found her hands stretched towards him. She extended her hands to grab his. He then extended his hands and grabbed hers. While holding hands, they headed inside. His mother bid him farewell and left for her work. She worked in an old-age care center as a nurse. Chatter, chatter, chatter. As he entered the room, he heard loud chatters of kids, some crying, some laughing, some fighting. It was more like a fish market than a classroom. WTF, somebody please take me out of here. Save me. Unable to handle the noise, he started to beg for help in his mind. The only thing he wished as he entered the classroom was to leave the classroom ASAP. The classroom was one heck of a hellish torture place for him. In that whole room, he was the only one who wasn't making any noise. Unable to handle the noise, he covered his ears. Ding! Quest unlocked. Please open the status window for details regarding the quest. He heard the sound of the system as he closed his ears. What quest? He mumbled. Status window. He whispered. Quest title, Survive the Classroom. Quest info, avoid the distracting sounds and focus on the words of the teacher. Rewards for quest completion. New skill focus. Penalty, none. Huh? Focus on teacher's words in this noisy environment? Are you kidding me? He exasperated upon seeing the quest of the system. The quest was near to impossible. It was simply impossible to focus on teacher's words in that hellish classroom.